We got our own little beach right here, private beach, with a little crab going in the thing.
Now that's AI, right?
Yeah, I have the most advanced AI.
I mean, dude, you're
I have some
you're
light.
you don't need it. You're a vibe. I mean, you have. I mean, it's like clearly that you're in a much vibier place than I am right now. What are you doing with
Oh,
that? Out of the camera.
light. Oh, you know what? I got a little.
Oh God, that's so much better. I want to talk about how much time do you have, by the way?
An hour solid.
I want to ask a bunch of questions. We can start with your company, your work stuff, but I want to get that into fun stuff like death, health, wealth,
Yeah, debt.
rituals,
Debt.
spiritual journeys. But you're running a business now. I mean, you've been running a business.
Uh-huh.
Why don't you talk about that, man? Talk about how you're in Hawaii running a business.
All right.
Is that your business? Is just hanging out in Hawaii? Does somebody pay you to do that? Because I
Well,
want that job.
yeah. The infamous they, um, it pops up my bank account. It just says they, and it's like 50 grand deposit every week. It's crazy. They. And then I, and then I somehow I end up negative still running my business, I guess, even with the donations from they. I'm not
Just
sure
wait,
how I've
but
been.
the money from the they line item, it actually clears, right? Or is it just pending all the time and processing?
No, it clears. Been talking to IRS about it. They're intrigued. They're trying to find they. They're like, look, we just need you to help us find they them. And I'm like, whoa, they them. Maybe we don't get on that rabbit hole today. I don't know.
Is it do you think it's the Rothschilds, the central banking? Who do you think it is?
Keep you posted.
Keep me posted.
I don't want the deposit to quit coming.
So you're in Hawaii,
Uh-huh.
you're getting deposits from Mr. Global or Mrs. Global or they global, however you'd like to put it. Okay. But
I had
you're
to,
running you,
I had to go playful. I mean, you sent me yesterday a text. You said you're going to ask me questions about spirituality. And then I was like looking like for necklaces and earrings, and I thought maybe I should get a tattoo yesterday. Like I'm like,
totally.
if I'm going to be talking about spirituality, I better look the part. Um, but
Dude, I usually have all my rings on
mhm.
for my part for the costume.
Yep,
And then I was sitting down here and I'm like, oh, shoot. I don't have my rings as part of whatever this costume is.
yep,
Let's do it without the rings and see if I am still alive. So,
yep. So I do the podcasts out here, but usually it's a little later in the day. I have a little bit more light, so I got self-conscious of my lighting. My wife Jan is in our office space, so she's vibing out in there. And then yeah, for work, actually started working online in Hawaii back in 2016. So I was working a sales job for a technology education company in Santa Monica. Life was groovy. Skateboard to the beach on my lunch break. You know, I thought I kind of had things set up the way I wanted, but things still felt a little empty in some ways. And then two buddies of mine wanted to start selling beard products online. I said, I'm in. I can go 3 to 6 months without taking a paycheck. Let's do it. We moved to Maui to get away from all the little distractions of home and focus and have access to gorgeous views and other stuff to inspire us. So that kicked off my digital marketing journey in the e-commerce space. After about 3 years of that, I decided to start my own e-commerce digital marketing consulting company and sold a bunch of products on Amazon. Kind of found that I didn't like working with just a product and a platform and numbers. I like connecting with people, whether it's like this or in person. In person's great. So I leaned into helping local business owners and starting to work with their teams and build out their sales and marketing systems to provide them better leads, more leads, and then a better return on investment for their overall marketing spend. So that's what I've been up to since 2016, and it allows me to spend time in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with my family in the summer. Then we migrate to Phoenix eventually, and then we end up migrating to Hawaii. Usually, we say we're like birds. We have a migration pattern.
What's your favorite place to eat on in Maui?
Favorite place to eat?
Yeah.
Kidoko. It is amazing. Chef Cole holds it down there. It's in the South Maui Gardens, little complex there. So it's really vibed. There's a bunch of food trucks, and I think his food truck is the only one where they serve you on an actual like plate with silverware and nice cutlery. They kind of give you like a little side eye. I feel like if you're ordering it for takeaway, I feel like it's not that's not approved. So
What does a side eye look like?
depends on the human, but sometimes it's for, like they might ask you to say it twice. Like you said takeout, and I'm like, no, no, I'll eat it here. I'll eat it here.
It's always a subtle, energetic fuck you, isn't it? That's what a side eye is. A side eye is kind of like, fuck you. And you're
Are you?
like,
I think sometimes it's are you fucking kidding me? Like
yeah, you're catching strays, right? I think that's kind of how that works. What about the grocery store in Paella? Am I saying it right? Is it Paella?
paella. I
I
think is how
tried.
some people say it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mana Foods.
Yeah.
We're about 35-minute drive from there. We're on the South Shore, Kihei, just north of Wailea is the popular like resort area most people would know. So we're just north of Wailea by a little bit.
So, what does a day in the life of Ryan look like with the work and maybe like a spiritual practice and everything else? Like, give me a day in the life.
Day in the life. So my wake up time is variable, anywhere from 3:45 a.m. to 6 a.m. Just depends on how my work calendar is set up with working with people across a variety of time zones. So we're 3 hours ahead right now from Pacific time and 6 hours
Wow.
from East Coast. So sometimes I have a call at 5 a.m. And if that's the case, I'm waking up. Maybe I do a little bit of movement and sit down and breathe, look at the ocean, just take a moment to try and get centered and feel relaxed and not feel like I have like this like hectic energy to start the day. You know, it takes
Where do you think that hectic energy comes from?
it
When
comes
you
from
do have that in the morning?
my thoughts. I'm thinking about more than the next thing that's right in front of me.
Why though? Why would you as a system even want to do that? Right? Like I like that you started that happens in the morning, and that's why I thought it was intriguing. Like right away, I wake up and I want to get centered to
Yeah.
address the thoughts that are seemingly already moving somewhere.
Mhm.
So that seems to be. I mean, would you say that that takes you out of homeostasis? And if so, why would your system even want to wake up right away being outside of homeostasis?
Um, I think for me, if I have something on my calendar that's within like the first hour of me waking up, um, I start to think about how the rest of the day is going to go. And I like to,
Hmm.
before I go to bed, take an inventory of what's in front of me. And then whenever I wake up, I like to like use visualization practices to envision those things going in an auspicious way. Um, so yeah, just when that morning is a little rushed. So typically that's not always the case that I have something on my calendar straight away, but if I have to do it, I do. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't pretend like, hey, I wake up and do the same exact thing every morning, because that's what some people do. Not me. Um, I have about an hour. I like to either push myself really hard physically, go on a run, or I like to do something really chill. It's not always the same for me every day. Some days I need to stretch and breathe and have a meal. Some days I'm like, I don't want to eat anything until lunchtime. But movement and a little bit of time to uh, meditate, breathe, pray, whatever people want to label it. That's
What do you pray? What do you pray to, and what are your prayers?
I pray to Source. I pray to God. The prayers are usually of gratitude. I usually default to what I'm thankful for. I'm trying to do a better job of having a very unique conversation day to day. For me, prayer is a conversation with God essentially, and meditation is more listening to Source and just getting quiet. Um, Sometimes it's focusing on something. Sometimes it might be a contemplation. There's lots of different variety of these things, and the labels that we throw on them, I think, can oftentimes mislead people. So I like to differentiate and get really specific about what it is when someone does ask.
We might actually get through your day, even though we're still at the morning, but probably not. Did you have an upbringing of a specific spirituality or religion? And if so, has that evolved, and how does that play into like your current belief system?
My parents sent me to a Catholic school. My grandparents went to church. We all went to church sometimes. It was definitely seemed like more of an obligation type vibe. By the time I was in like eighth grade, my grandparents went to church every week and we went every once in a while. That was about it. Um, Went to Catholic high school in ninth grade, had detention every day. So much so, yeah, bro, there was a month left in school. They called me in the office. They're like, hey, there's 25 days of school left. You have 50 detentions left. You have to serve in the morning and after school. I'm like, can I just start off next year with detention? And then I
Dude,
transferred to school.
that just doesn't like it's so interesting. I met you, at Optimize, and you're just like kind of like I was just like, who's this kind of spiritual cat with cool long hair? Because I always wanted like cool long hair and just to be like ripped and like all spiritual. And I'm kind of neurotic with spiky hair for my insecurities. And you're just like a calm center, like I'm keeping to myself, and I'm in the sauna with my wife and I'm radiating love to her. So to hear that, like, that was kind of your upbringing, that's kind of far out, man. But anyway, so you grew up Catholic, and I would grew up Catholic too, and I went to a Catholic grade school, and, I rebelled. So you're in the high school and your family's kind of church going, and then what?
Transferred to public school. My dad moved somewhere. The public school was a good education. Like where I lived originally, my parents just sent me to Catholic school. Like, yeah, they grew up Catholic. They kind of felt obligated probably, but at the end of the day, it was they just thought they needed to pay for me to get a half decent education. And as soon as my
Yeah.
dad moved somewhere that the public school could provide that, I just went there. Um, yeah, and life was good. I never had detention ever again. Yeah, they really disliked if I asked them if something they were teaching was in the Bible somewhere I could look, or if it
Yeah.
was their interpretation. I think I that was most of my detentions probably, but I was genuinely curious.
So maybe at an early age, you were just like, "Hey, man, don't trust, verify." you're
Yeah.
you're already kind of going down a decentralized path when you were young.
Uh-huh. I think I remember a moment where I I asked them, I said, hey, like whenever I write a paper, you ask me to cite stuff. Like
Yeah.
I'm kind of just asking you to cite what you're sharing here. I thought this was protocol. I think I got like 3 detentions for that one.
So your current iteration of spirituality, your source, how does that come to fruition? You know, from
Um,
the tension to today.
I yeah, I really never thought anything of it other than like curious, like, oh wow, all these people want to read this book and like they all go to church, and I was like more curious and intrigued. I didn't really have like any experience where I like felt got like overwhelmed by like energies or anything. Like none of that happened in my youth. But then whenever I moved away from home and I was starting to work different jobs and realized that the things I valued as a kid and I thought I wanted growing up, I realized that actually isn't gonna lead to fulfillment. Um, yeah, I started to search for more. I had a group of friends that were older than me, and they were they treated me like a little brother and took care of me. They when I was in college, they were taking me to Miami, Las Vegas, Europe, partying, doing all this stuff, and I got to meet people that were like, you know, spending a bunch of money to have these experiences, and I was pretty young at the time. So then after, let's call it 5 years of that, I was like, oh yeah, like there's people that are investing a ton of time to make this money to go have these experiences. I had fun. I'm glad I did it, but by no means am I interested in acquiring these riches and investing them into that experience. Like I
Mm.
understand, like, and I understand how people might have a curiosity if they've never done it before. That's the route they go. They come out of college, they work, and now all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, I could never afford to do this or that, and they go bottle service and pool parties or extremely fine dining and all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I experienced it, but it's not what I want to pursue. So I started to look into other things and I started to get injured here and there, um, like my ankle, my back. So I started doing yoga.
Mm.
That was really the turning point. So growing up, I never got a good night's sleep. Like I remember they tell me go to bed at 9. It'd be 2:33 in the morning. I'm just wide awake staring at the ceiling. And after like 30 days of doing yoga every day, um, I started to sleep really well. I would fall asleep in the shavasana position in my bed, and I'd wake up the same spot 8 hours later, feel energized, and I never felt that before in my life. After I completed the like 30, 40 days in a row of yoga, I decided that I was like, oh, okay, cool. Now I'm just gonna go like 2, 3 days a week. I don't need to be doing all that. I'm doing too much. And the sleep benefit became like a little fleeting and not as reliable. So
Mm.
that's whenever I leaned into yoga as a daily practice, and yeah, it's mainly to make sure I slept. And then all the injuries I had started to go away. My ankle stuff went away, my back issues, my shoulder that would hurt, all that healed. So I was like, oh wow. And then spending time in the shavasana and these seated meditations, I started to look at the world in a different way. So that's where I'd say it started.
What is that shift in the vantage point that you're talking about? I started to look at the world in a different way from what orientation to what new orientation?
Um, it's a great question. The original orientation, I'd say, was very much just push, push, push. Like I played basketball growing up, played basketball in college, very competitive. I basically, yeah, just thought I needed to wake up and go for it. if I ever slept more than like 5 hours or 6 hours, I felt like I was being lazy and I was like misbehaving. Um, Whenever I started doing yoga is whenever I started to have a lot better reading comprehension as well. And that's whenever I was
Mm-hmm.
like getting into creating a career for myself. And in the past, it would take me a lot of time to get through and actually remember or understand and be able to work with information that was passed my way. Let's say, we're working on a project or a business proposal. If you give me 25 pages to understand and be able to like work with, it might take me a few days. And I was like, this isn't good. Like, so I
Mm.
studied accounting all my life. I mean, I studied accounting in college because that had to do with numbers, and a lot of it I could just check my own work and make sense of it because the math had to check out. So I always just leaned into math in school to kind of keep myself like labeled as smart. And then,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I got into reading different books and, Surrender Experiment, The Alchemist, started reading some yoga text. I decided I wanted to read the book of Genesis and the Bible in great detail, and then start diving through the rest of the Bible. Um, then I started studying some different philosophies. So yeah, I've decided that the conditioning, the programming that I received growing up, there were a lot of aspects of it that I wanted to replace, and there were a ton of aspects of it I wanted to keep. Like my family's really close, family values are really strong. I think every great like yeah, every great moment from my childhood had to do with like family and sports. So those were
Mm.
things that I really valued and decided to keep with me in value. And my mom was the only entrepreneurial one of my family, which I definitely vibed with and decided to go down that route after trying a few different jobs and then start my own business.
So what I heard is going from like you were saying, a very pushing orientation, which I can super get down with, and I relate so much to if I'm just doing nothing, I'm failing. Like like there's always more to be done. Like
Yep.
I have to prove almost my worth to myself in the universe, you know.
Yeah.
And on a good spiritual hair day, it seems as though
Let's say if I'm having one.
yeah. Oh, dude, see, you're just showing off, bro.
A good
On
spiritual
a
hair day. Go ahead. I'm
That's
sorry.
a great spiritual hair day, dude. On a good spiritual hair day, I can kind of more methodically, like, Ram Dass talks about equanimity,
Hmm.
and kind of like my old friend Chris used to always say, Matt, look at your feet, and almost like enter into the present moment. And when I am able to slow down, right, which is what I really heard from you with your practice and your shift, like this morning, dude, Crystal and I went and we have a little hill over here that we walk to in the park with barefoot to try to ground and get the sun right away in our eyes. And
Hmm.
we're standing there and we do it every morning, and this is like I think a little like a gesture from the universe of what you're talking about, this receivership almost. When I'm in gratitude, I'm in receivership kind of orientation. And
Yep.
we're standing there and some cat walks up to us who we've seen a handful of times past few weeks. And he's not he's like the opposite of you, right? Like he's got like the shaved head and he's got like the American blue stripe, and then the American shirt, and like he probably was a police officer of some
Hmm.
fashion. And he walks up to us with this feather and hands it to Crystal and he goes, "Hey, this is from the owl from just down the road. Please accept this on your spiritual journey today." And then he just walked away. And, then of course, Crystal's looking up the meaning of owl feathers and all this
Yeah.
stuff, but it's like, do you find that, whether it's for your clientele, your business, or maybe the love with your wife or your overall community, and or maybe within your own heart. Like when you're slowing down, does it almost just seem like it's too easy? You know what I mean? Like it's like stuff. It's like a hack, right? Where stuff's just coming to you. And how much have you been feeling that as of late?
Um, yeah, I feel like there's waves of that. I feel like there's waves of feeling very supported by you referenced the universe, God, source. For me, those words are all interchangeable, but I feel very supported in that way. And then there's times where I'm like, oh, okay, there's actually something I need to learn or evolve into or understand at another level to open up that flow again, because I definitely noticed that flow happen, and then there'll be like a little bit of a different feeling where I'm like, oh, am I just not aware that that flow is still happening in there? Is there something within me in my mind that is closed off to that receiving right now, or is it the maybe there is maybe a block because I need to evolve and I need to adapt a new skill or yeah, learn how to maybe if the world is changing around me, maybe that I'm being asked to also change to be in harmony with my environment. Um,
Almost like maybe the collective subconscious of the world, right? Or conscious.
yeah,
The collective is like, hey, we're kind of dancing a little over here. We don't mind people who color outside the lines, but we also need to be useful with one another too, right? So it's kind of like if I'm all the way in or all the way out,
hmm
I've probably lost my utility, you know, but my utility comes in the form of my ability, probably, I think, partially to connect, you know. And if I'm facilitating connection, it's going to be pretty tough if I'm like not at least working within the framework to what you're saying, right? Of like, what's in the zeitgeist, right? Like
yeah,
this is in the zeitgeist, you
true
know?
that. Yeah.
How have you felt with, it's interesting. So I think you've been doing it a lot longer than I have, but that's how Crystal and I met you and Jana. We went to Optimize, and I had never done a cold plunge my whole life. This is whatever, 4 years ago. And I had a buddy who actually came through town. This is like a universe thing. And he met another gentleman at Optimize because he's in the addiction recovery field, my
hmm
buddy Pete. And he met another gentleman we know who attends Optimize. And he came back and said, hey, man, you got to try out this cold plunging thing, man. I tried it. And it's awesome. And I'm a pretty ornery little SOB and I
Yeah.
don't like inconveniences. So I'm like, oh, man, will it mess up my hair? Like, I gotta like I gotta like get in a bathing suit in front of people and then my wife does and all this stuff. And it was like that.
hmm
It was like I got hooked, right?
Does he live back in like the Midwest or up north somewhere?
Yeah, yeah,
I,
Wisconsin,
m- I
yeah.
met him. I met him with you before at a cafe. We were happen to have lunch the same vegan cafe we.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that goofball. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
So that whole biohacking, for lack of a better term, and maybe you have a better one, but Crystal and I have been going through that of like, you got the sauna, you got the cold plunge, you got the red light therapy, you got the EMF or the PEMF mat, and all this different stuff, and it's like, now what seems to be in the zeitgeist is like, too much biohacking is bad. It's like, what's your thoughts on that right now? That whole kind of industry and just kind of like the methodology.
I think it's awesome that these tools are being commercialized to, from my perspective, just bring aspects of nature to people in cities and places that are very detached from nature.
Mm.
Um, I got into cold plunging when I moved to Bali in 2017, and it
Uh,
was just to train my breath holds. I heard that when you're in cold water, you can hold your breath longer for some reason. I don't even know if it was true, but I just like, okay, I'm going to try it. I was starting to surf a lot more. I was starting to try and go out when things were a little bit more challenging and like probably okay with pushing the edge of maybe what was safe for me. So I was like, all right, let me be responsible and learn how to hold my breath. Um, so I found a place that had a cold plunge and I started going there and doing that. And then I would use the sauna from time to time, but I didn't really feel like I was getting a ton out of it that I couldn't do exercising in the sun on my own.
uh,
Like, oh, I can run in the sun and break a sweat and I'm still gonna get my heart rate up. So the cold plunge was really nice for me to start to, you know, deal with discomfort and notice my that kind of like that energy that you talked about you referenced when I talked about starting my day. Like I felt like there was an outside stimulus causing me to want to stress in some way, shape, or form, and I was able to learn to calm that. And after I was able to learn to calm it, then it moved into like, okay, how long can I keep that calm? How long can I stay in
uh,
without being annoyed or whatever? And then eventually it got to a point where I was like, oh yeah, like it's actually not helping me to not be annoyed for 11 minutes in the cold plunge because when I get out, I need to eat a cow to feel ready again because I burned so many calories in the cold plunge. So then I started to learn like, oh, what's actually helpful versus like not, and kind of leaning into what you said, like too much biohacking is bad. Like I'm glad I learned what it's like to push the limits on it, but then I'm like, oh yeah, that's not serving me. Maybe I do that like a couple times
uh,
a year just as like a check-in, but I don't need to even do that once a week.
yeah, man. I mean, I got into it. I think I was cold plunging every day, and I was like, I want it the colder the better, and I wanted to push so hard, and then it's almost like again the natural response. You know, we have night and we have day, we have off and we have on.
Mm,
That just like naturally what ended up happening is we took, gosh, 6, 7, 8 months off of cold plunging too,
yeah,
and it was like, wow, man. You know, it's like you got to have kind of that contrast, right? Of
yeah,
the experience of, like you said, the ebbs and the flows. And it's just like, it's so interesting. Like you're talking about that voice again. You didn't say the voice, maybe you said voice, but you know, the thing that when we wake up and it's like, you know, where's that coming from? And I want to look at it as bad, right? I want to label things as good or bad. You know, it's the whole Asian farmer story with the horse. You know, I don't know, maybe good, maybe bad.
yeah.
You know,
I like that story.
and it's like one of my dude. When I got, you know, I'm 17 years sober, and when I first got sober, you know, I'm 23 years old. That blew my mind, man. Like I remember too, like when I was new in like this new way of life. You know, I remember this guy said something to me once. He's like, "Yeah, maybe you're just wrong, and like, or maybe both things are right." And I'm like, "Both things can be true at once." You know, there must be a hero and a villain. There must be a
Yeah,
right and there must be a wrong. Just tell me which side to go on, man. There's winners and losers, right? And it's
yeah,
like, dude, there's so much more when the infinite. And it's interesting. The cold plunging was a huge piece of that for me. You know, in terms of opening my mind with that, and you're talking about your breath, and you know, Crystal's actually been doing almost daily with us. Is we've got these two new practices, and I'm really curious what you and your wife's practices are. I mean, right now, like we're doing two different things. One thing is she's doing this 4 minute, it's a very short minute, 4 minute breath work that we're doing together, and we do it in the sauna pretty
hmm
much every day. And after 4 minutes, I'm like shot out. And then the other thing is we'll stand in the mirror together, and
hmm
then we'll look at ourselves and we'll say I love you 10 times. And then we cross our eyes to each other, and then we're holding hands and we say I love you to each other. And it's like, whoa, bro, like I thought a shot of whiskey was good, right? Like
right.
this is like a whole nother level of I don't even know what's happening.
Yeah, I love that.
So what are you guys jamming on right now? What are you jamming on for practices? You're talking about the waking up and the praying. What else you got?
Um, we've been going to place like once a week, to just sit by the river and by the stream, whatever someone wants to call it. And it's a really beautiful valley. There's the rocks get heated up by the sun, so you can kind of have this like cold plunge vibe, but it's not super cold. It's probably only like low 50s, high 40 degrees. And yeah, we hang out there, kind of a Saturday or Sunday thing, kind of resets us from the week of working. And as far as like, we don't have any practices we're committed to together right now, both doing our own thing. And for me, it's been just checking a few boxes each day that I like
Uh,
to do. I like to do something that involves using my breath, and then at the end of the breathing, meditating. And then I also like to do something that is either like a workout or a recovery workout. So kind of like either yang or yin. So
mm.
sometimes I'll do CrossFit, sometimes I'll do a gentle restorative yoga, sometimes I'll go on a jog, sometimes I'll go surfing, sometimes I go in the outrigger canoe. So it really just depends, but I just like to do something active with my body, and I like to do something to be still and tap into my breath and my mind.
You're kind of listening to your body, is what I'm hearing. Whatever you're kind of feeling in that moment.
Yeah, I feel like there's a recipe that changes for me,
Mm.
and it's based on, yeah, like how I'm doing. Like I can't do CrossFit every day and also feel cognitively sharp. I've been uh playing around with the idea of, I kind of live as a, like, business is my new sport. I was like, all I
Mm.
knew my whole life was sports. So now I train in a way to support me to be able to work. And like the new scoreboard for my sport is, um, you know, our success in business, our equanimity, stability, and the same of that for the clients that we're working with. Um, I try to align with people that I enjoy spending time with. It's just kind of like I try to create a life that doesn't involve a lot of people that I don't want to be working with. But kind of, it's kind of one of the reasons why I started my podcast, because I was like, I don't really like not really knowing that much or being able to understand what someone's like without this like whole sales negotiation bubble that we're like people are putting their costumes on for. I was like, I'd much prefer to have a podcast with someone where I'm giving them something for free. So I give them like backlinks to their website. I give them like 3 to 5 clips that I have our video editor do. So it's like I don't feel like I'm taking from them by
Mm.
having this podcast experience, because I want to have them walk away with something of value that they're benefiting from. And then if I enjoyed that 2 week process, let's say we schedule, we have the podcast, and there's a little bit of time it takes to put together the clips and stuff. So let's just say that's 2 weeks. We had some back and forth over the course of 2 weeks, and we got to experience communicating with each other.
Mm.
That generally gives me a pretty good idea of, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it'd be fun to work with this person. Or it's like, oh, wait, yeah, actually, that it was a good podcast. They have a good business, but I don't think we would sustain a good relationship together because of X, Y, or Z. Then maybe we just part ways after that. And it wasn't like they said no to my offer, or um, they wanted me to lower my price, and like I didn't, because like I thought they were going to be difficult. Like it's just like a more organic way to get to know someone, in my opinion. So Yeah.
I was wondering, it's funny that when I asked you to do this, to sit down and chat, I didn't even know yet that you were doing that. And then I saw it, and I saw it with you and in Jesse, mutual friend Jesse, and who's just one of my favorite people on earth. And like, he also heavily introduced me to a lot of breath work and really transformed my attitude on that. But I was wondering, I was going to ask you about that. What kind of inspired you? And it sounds like you were looking for almost another way to orient yourself with the business that you're running.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Yeah, it's interesting. I had a couple of friends that were like, "Oh, so you're trying to start a podcast?" And I'm like, "No. I just want to talk to people and like I just want to like, this is almost like a yoga for me, to talk about ideas and learn more about people. And it's just something I think in a past life, I must have been either like an investigative journalist or, I don't know, man. But, I love asking people questions. I love
Mhm.
learning about what people are doing and what they're reading and who, the practices. And it's kind of like I am of that belief that like I'm literally just talking to myself right now. Like you're just bouncing it back to me,
Uh-huh.
and no matter who it is that's in front of me, and I'm going through this, okay, what's going on here,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
then the other thing too, and you probably relate a lot to this, I'm assuming, in business, because I'm 41. When I was like 25, I sold a lot. A lot of outside sales, and
Mhm.
I read Little Red Book of Sales by Jeffrey Gitomer when I was really young. And my biggest takeaway from that book was basically like just you go hard in the paint. Like
Yeah.
just, like like you're not a victim
Mhm.
and just go hard in the paint and then everything will take care of itself. And I think that's kind of one of the things with this I wanted to do too. Not necessarily go hard in the paint, but just like throw shit at the wall
Yeah.
and see what the universe says back,
Yeah.
you know?
I like that. I I similar to you. Yeah, I worked sales jobs right out of college. Um, so like yeah, it was just go, 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 go. More calls, more handshakes, more business cards. Can I use your business card?
Yeah.
Do you have a card?
Yeah. That's like the American Psycho clip. Um, we should wrap up soon, but I want to know what's your favorite thing about your wife right now?
Right now, my favorite thing about my wife.
And then where do we go when we die? So those are my last two
Oh,
questions for you. So you can answer in any order you'd like.
my favorite thing. There's so many. I could word this one of two ways. I'm grasping at different ideas of what my favorite thing of her is, or there's so many favorites I'm having trouble to choose one. I mean, she's marvelous. I definitely don't think it's me needing to search for one, but my favorite, um, I'd say that just the teamwork aspect of things that we've been dropping into with longer periods of flow. With yeah, we do a lot together. We exercise together sometimes. We have a lot of our meals together, working together. That sometimes can come with some challenges as well because if I don't like disharmony, but I'm also okay having like conversation, or even if we agree, I find value in like maybe playing devil's advocate to make sure we're not just living in this like bias bubble, and that can cause some trouble. But I feel like we've been really communicating well and working through, the professional life and our romantic life in a very harmonious way. And her effort and how she's shown up for all that is probably my favorite thing right now.
Because you guys are working together.
Oh yeah.
'Cause everyone, do you get this? Chris and I get this all the time. how do you do that? How do you live together and are and married, and then also you're running businesses together?
Yeah.
How like their minds are just blown, and it's
Hmm.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
man, And it's like the thing that I heard too that I loved, what I just heard you say without saying it. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is like, you wanna tell people what an experience is like. It's kind of like getting sober. Like, oh, let me tell you what getting sober is like to the new guy, right? They don't know, right? Let me tell you what sex is like when you're 13 or 12 or whatever the hell it is. It's the best thing on earth. It's like you don't know till you know.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what comes with the depth
Hmm.
of long-term relationships, whether it's with a significant other or close friends, and just there's something there. There's a texture to those, good, bad, or indifferent, that you just can't get when it's just like that. So
Hmm.
there's something there. So
I'm
Ryan, when
realizing,
you
I'm realizing I just lied to you though. Like I cut you off because I realized I just lied to you. My
good,
favorite thing, if I'm really honest, is probably just the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches she's been making lately. They've been exceptional.
well, my next two questions is the jelly organic? Does it have glyphosate in it? And are there any seed oil? Is there any sunflower oil in the
Oh,
peanut butter?
you already know Jiffy and yeah, it's the Jiffy bottle that has the peanut butter and the jelly in one vessel.
Okay, so RFK would be pissed. That's
And
what you're saying.
yeah, no, I'm joking. In all seriousness, I'm pretty sure it's like a $25 jar of macadamia nut butter and then some other special jam she's buying and it's on gluten-free bread. And she puts it in the toaster and I think she puts a little bit of ghee on the bread before she does
Oh,
the
brother.
jelly and the peanut butter.
So
But
we've been driving almost once a week to Proof,
uh-huh.
up on Shea,
Yep.
to get the sourdough, to do a very similar vibe with the grass-fed butter and the whole shtick. But peanut butter, my wife we'll have to connect you with these, okay? When you
Uh-huh.
guys are back to the mainland,
Uh-huh.
my wife makes the best peanut butter cups in the entire world.
I'm stoked.
I'm
I
not
got
joking. I'm not
I'm
joking.
I
We'll
believe you.
we'll we'll have to have this energetic exchange when you guys are back. When you die,
Uh-huh.
tell me all about that.
Maybe I don't die. When they burn, are you asking about like I prefer to be cremated, but if I don't have like if I am not here, this is I'm not touching myself. So I don't think I die. I just think this meat suit um someone will bury it against my wishes maybe hopefully not. Hopefully they just burn it like I want them to. But yeah, that's it. I'm not gonna die. Something's gonna happen to my meat suit, and that's what happens in my reality.
I have some friends that are very Christian in my recovery
Hmm.
program, and I at times I'm jealous because I look
Hmm.
at them and I'm like, man, they got this cool belief, man, and they're so convicted about it, and I really respect it. But I don't have that in me right now. I just don't have that. There's certain, elements which without me going into it. And
Yeah.
I think honestly a big part of it is like I just I think that whenever this skin suit that I'm very attached to clearly with the way I decorate it, just there's so many signs, man, that if I were to go like this, that
Hmm.
something else is going on, but it's
Hmm.
not that. It's not like either or, right? It's not a binary option. It
Hmm.
seems like it's much more infinite to that. So, with that, we'll end on the fact that neither of us are going to really die, and that's a plus in my book.
Right?
So
Yeah.
I appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you too.